I never thought I'd live to see the day where someone would look me in the eye and call me cheap. Not after everything I've done, everything I've built, and certainly not from the girl my son planned to marry. But I guess life has a funny way of revealing people's true colors. It started subtly: glances, silences, exclusions. When Nathan introduced me to Emily, I kept an open heart. She was polished, eloquent, always dressed in designer labels and heels too high to walk comfortably in. I could see the appeal, especially for someone like Nathan, who'd worked his way up in corporate finance, wearing crisp suits and eating in places where appetizers cost more than my weekly groceries. At first, Emily was polite. Distant, but polite. I could tell she wasn't used to people like me, people who wore sensible shoes and used coupons. People who still cooked instead of ordering takeout and who fixed things instead of replacing them. She smiled at me with a glossed-over kindness that didn't reach her eyes. But I smiled back, trying to be supportive. After all, Nathan loved her. That had to mean something. Then came the engagement announcement, but strangely, I didn't hear it from them. My neighbor, of all people, mentioned seeing a post on Instagram: Nathan and Emily are getting engaged. Look at this venue, Dorothy. Wow. She'd said. No phone call. No message. Not even a damn email. When I asked Nathan about it, he stammered awkwardly. We meant to tell you. It's just been really busy. You know how it is. But I did know how it was. I'd been deliberately excluded. It was Emily who confirmed it 1 week later, in a coffee shop she chose, the kind where you pay $7 for a tiny cup and sit in chairs too modern to be comfortable. She wore sunglasses inside. Removed them slowly when I sat down. I wanted to speak with you privately, she began. My stomach turned. She continued, Nathan loves you, and I respect that, but I don't think it would be appropriate for you to attend the engagement party. I blinked. I beg your pardon? She crossed her legs like a queen on a throne and said, my family. They're a certain way. They come from money, old money. And well, frankly, I'm afraid you just wouldn't fit in. It would be too much of a contrast. No offense, but your lifestyle, it's rather poor and cheap. She said it like she was commenting on the weather. Cold. Dismissive. Clinical. It took everything in me not to reach across the table and throw the overpriced coffee in her face. But I didn't. I smiled. It was the kind of smile that says, you have no idea who you're dealing with. Of course, I said calmly. Wouldn't want to make anyone uncomfortable. She smiled, satisfied. I could see it, she thought she'd won. But what Emily didn't know, what no one in her pristine little world knew, was that poor and cheap had never been words that defined me. I just chose to live simply. My money? My power? My worth, that was a story she'd soon come to understand, very publicly. And the reckoning, oh, it was coming. After Emily dismissed me like yesterday's news, I didn't go home to sulk. No, I went home and poured myself a glass of wine, the expensive kind, not the $5 bottle I usually pull out. Because unlike what Emily believed, I wasn't struggling. I simply chose to live below my means. The truth was, I was wealthy. Very wealthy. It wasn't lottery luck or some rich ex-husband. It was decades of hard work, smart investments, and sacrifices. I'd grown up poor, sure. My parents lived paycheck to paycheck, and I swore I'd never do the same. So while other people bought luxury cars and expensive purses, I saved. I learned. I invested in real estate, dabbled in stocks. Over time, the zeros in my account grew, quietly, humbly. I didn't live lavishly. I didn't brag. But I could afford to. Emily didn't know that. Neither did her father, I assumed, who, by the way, made a fortune in luxury hotel chains, if Nathan's stories were to be believed. The man was used to the finer things, apparently. So was his daughter. But you know what rich people hate, being surprised. And I had a surprise planned. I didn't want revenge out of pettiness. It wasn't about attending some engagement party or proving I belonged. It was about respect. I had earned the right to be in my son's life, and no girl dripping in daddy's money was going to tell me otherwise. I got to work. First, I made a few calls. Quiet ones. To a catering company I once helped out of a tough spot. To a venue owner whose mortgage I saved years ago. And most importantly, to a man named Gerard, Emily's father's biggest investor in his new hotel chain. Yes, that Gerard. He owed me. Back in the day, I gave him seed money when he was a nobody with a dream and a folder full of blueprints. No contracts. Just trust. That man turned it into an empire and never forgot it. I need a favor, I said. Anything, he replied instantly. I smiled. I need to be at that party. And I want Emily's father to know exactly who I am. He laughed, deep and low. Dorothy, you always did know how to play the long game. And oh, I was just getting started. The day of the engagement party arrived. I wasn't on the guest list. I wasn't sent an invite. But I wasn't going to need one. Not with what I had planned. I wore a navy blue gown, simple, elegant, tailored perfectly. Hair pinned. Pearls from my late grandmother. I didn't arrive in a cab, either. A sleek black car dropped me off at the entrance like I was royalty. Heads turned the second I walked in. Not because I was flashy or loud. Because I belonged. The room glittered with chandeliers and champagne towers. People whispered as I walked past, trying to place me. Who was she? Why did she look so familiar? I smiled, sipped the drink handed to me, and waited. Then I saw him, Emily's father. Tall, silver-haired, with a booming laugh and a diamond watch. He was shaking hands, smiling for photos, living the role of proud host. Until he saw me. He froze. Eyes wide. He blinked hard, like he thought he was seeing a ghost. Dorothy? He said, stepping toward me slowly. Hello, Henry, I said smoothly, sipping my champagne. What are you doing here? You know Emily? I gave him a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. She's engaged to my son. He looked absolutely stunned. You're Nathan's mother? I nodded. He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. Dorothy, my God. I had no idea. Neither did she, I said lightly. Apparently, I'm too poor and cheap to attend. Henry's face turned red. She said what? I didn't need to say anything else. He knew. The rest of the night? Let's just say the whispers changed direction fast. And Emily, she hadn't even noticed me yet. But that moment was coming. Oh, it was coming. Emily was laughing with a group of women near the flower arch when she saw me. At first, her expression didn't change. She probably thought I was a distant guest, maybe someone from her father's business world. She even gave a little smile, the fake kind she reserved for anyone she thought wasn't worth her time. But then, she looked again. And the color drained from her face. I could almost hear her thoughts screaming. What is she doing here? How did she get in? She left the group mid-laugh, her heels clicking furiously against the marble floor as she stormed toward me. Dorothy, she hissed, fake smile plastered on. What a surprise. I wasn't aware you received an invitation. I didn't, I replied calmly. But I didn't need one. She glanced over her shoulder, no doubt searching for Nathan or her father, hoping one of them would swoop in and remove me. Then how are you even here? Her voice was tight, panicked. Before I could answer, a voice cut through the air behind her. Because I invited her. Emily turned around. Her father stood there, jaw tight, face red. His drink was untouched. His hands clenched. Dad? She blinked. Why would you? Henry didn't let her finish. Do you even know who Dorothy is? What she's done for people? For me? Emily looked confused. She's Nathan's mother. A sweet woman, I guess, but sweet? He snapped. This sweet woman is the reason your old man isn't living in a cardboard box right now. She believed in me when no one else did. Funded my first property. That was her money. Not the bank's. Not mine. Hers. Emily stared at me like I was some stranger. Like she was seeing me for the first time. And maybe she was. You judged her, Henry continued, his voice rising. You insulted her. You embarrassed Nathan. And you embarrassed me. The room had gone silent now. Conversations had faded. Guests pretended to sip drinks while watching the unfolding chaos like it was the main event. Emily stammered, I didn't know, she never said anything. Oh, don't worry, darling, I said, stepping forward with a smile. You made yourself very clear. Poor and cheap, remember? I wouldn't want to make anyone uncomfortable. Her mouth opened and closed, struggling for words. Then Nathan appeared. Confused, trying to piece together the situation. Mom? What's going on? Your fiancé, I said gently, told me not to come tonight. She said I wasn't fit to attend. Nathan turned to Emily, shock written all over his face. You what? I didn't mean it like that, Emily stammered. It was just. I didn't want her to feel out of place. Oh, I didn't feel out of place, I said, placing my empty glass on a nearby tray. But I think you're about to. Henry stepped forward, looking like he was barely keeping his temper in check. This event? This venue, these flowers, this menu. None of it would exist if Dorothy hadn't done what she did for me all those years ago. You owe her an apology. Publicly. Emily's lips trembled. She looked at the crowd, at Nathan, at me. And she said nothing. Because pride does that to people. Henry exhaled sharply and looked at me. Dorothy, I'm so sorry. I waved it off. Not your fault. Some people just need to learn the hard way. And with that, I turned and walked out. I didn't need to stay. I'd made my point. But before I reached the door, I heard the unmistakable sound of Nathan's voice. I think we need to talk, Emily. And oh, what a talk that must have been. I didn't go home right away after I left the venue. Instead, I took a slow walk through the city streets, letting the cool air settle my thoughts. My heels clicked softly against the pavement, but my heart? It was calm. Peaceful, even. Because I had finally shown them, especially Emily, who I was. Not the poor, disposable woman she imagined, but someone with depth, history, and strength. Someone who didn't need flashy clothes or loud declarations to make a statement. The fallout came swiftly. By morning, my phone had exploded with messages from mutual acquaintances, family, even a few of Emily's bridesmaids. One read, Dorothy, I'm so sorry. None of us knew what she said to you. You didn't deserve that. Another, you handled that with more grace than I ever could. She was out of line. Everyone's talking about it. But the one that surprised me most was from Nathan. Mom, I'm sorry. I should have seen it sooner. Can I come talk to you? Please. When he arrived later that afternoon, he looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes. Wrinkled collar. He didn't hug me right away. He just sat across from me at the kitchen table and buried his face in his hands. She kept trying to justify it, he said, voice hoarse. Tried to say she only wanted things to be perfect. That you'd make people uncomfortable because you don't dress like her family. I didn't interrupt. I just listened. She said. You were old-fashioned. That people like you would hold us back. That stung. But I didn't flinch. I told her to leave, he said softly. That made me look up. She didn't even apologize, Mom. She just cried about how I embarrassed her in front of her family. She said you made her father turn on her. I leaned back in my chair and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Do you love her? I asked. Nathan was silent for a long moment. I thought I did, he admitted. But after everything, I realized I've been trying to fit into her life. Her image. Her perfect world. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing the cracks. She didn't love you, I said gently. She loved the version of you she could show off. He nodded slowly. I'm calling off the engagement. That hit harder than I expected. I never wanted to destroy my son's relationship, but he looked more free than he had in months. I'm proud of you, I said, reaching across the table and taking his hand. He squeezed it, eyes glassy. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you sooner. You did, I said with a small smile. When it really mattered. The next week was a whirlwind of rumors, wedding cancellations, refund battles, and Emily's dramatic meltdowns, which, to be honest, didn't move me one bit. Emily tried damage control, of course. She posted an Instagram story about false narratives and misunderstood intentions, but no one bought it. Her father wasn't speaking to her, and her friends? They distanced themselves fast. People may admire money, but they respect character. And character was something Emily never truly had.